Hi, everybody. I'm Emma McGorray, and the title of my presentation today is From Science Olympiad to Psychological Science, Research Psychology is a Fulfilling Path for Science Olympians. So who am I? I'm a Science Olympiad alum. I competed from 8th grade to 12th grade for the Rocky River Middle School and high school teams in Northeast Ohio, and I graduated in 2014. My favorite event was definitely experimental design, but I also did a ton of other events over the years. So Write It, Do It, Dynamic Planet, Astronomy, Chem Lab, and a bunch more. This is a picture of me and my team from back in maybe 2010. That's me. And those are all of my teammates who decided that they thought it would be fun to randomly carry me around like this in between events. So what do I do now? I went to Kenyon College for my undergraduate degree where I studied English and psychology. And now I'm a PhD student at Northwestern University studying social psychology. And specifically, I study identity and social relationships and online interaction and social connection, among other things. Before I tell you more about psychology, I want to talk about why I love Science Olympiad. Most obviously, I love science. When I was in Science Olympiad, I loved getting to design and run experiments and experimental design. And I love to be part of the investigative scientific process. I also love diving deep into topics and learning as much as I could about them. I still love that, which is something I'm sure you all know Science Olympiad is perfect for. And finally, in Science Olympiad, I loved collaboratively learning with others. I loved working with my partners on my events, learning from friends who did different events from me, and being in a community of people who love science. And that brings me to why I love psychology. So in addition to loving science in high school, I was also really passionate about understanding human behavior and emotions. And I didn't really know anything about psychology at the time, but I loved and still love thinking about how people think about themselves and develop their identities, form satisfying relationships, and connect and interact with one another. But I also love learning about past scientific research. I love working with data and statistics. And I enjoy working with other people who are passionate about science and are passionate about learning. And what I love about psychology is that it allows me to combine all of these interests. So I can investigate questions about human identity and relationships using a scientific approach that allows me to look at questions empirically and in collaboration with others. And I get to work with other psychological scientists every day to design studies and experiments, interpret data, and learn together. When I was in middle school and high school, I didn't really know much about psychology at all. My high school didn't have a psychology class, and I kind of thought psychology was mostly about therapy and psychoanalysis and Freud. But there's a lot more than just therapy and Freud when it comes to psychology. As I've mentioned, psychology allows me to study things empirically. But what is it exactly that psychologists study? And the answer is a lot of different things. So I'm studying social psychology, and social psychologists study a wide range of topics, including stereotyping and prejudice, social identities and personality, and relationships and social interaction, just to name a few. There are cognitive psychologists who study topics like memory, language, information processing, and decision-making. There are clinical psychologists who study psychological disorders like anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, and so on. There are developmental psychologists who study how people develop socially, cognitively, and emotionally from the time they're babies to the ends of their lives. There are health psychologists who study how social and psychological factors influence our physical health. And as I said, these are just some examples of the types of things these different psychologists study. And there are many different things psychologists study too, like neuroscience, community psychology, the psychology behind effective and inclusive educational environments. And just to give you a sense of the types of findings that emerge from the field of psychology, here's some headlines related to psychology research. So this research finds that depression and stress could dampen the efficacy of COVID-19 vaccines. This research finds that gender-neutral restrooms make people feel safer and more included. And this research finds that repeating misinformation makes people more likely to believe it. And again, this is just a small sampling of some headlines about findings from psychology, but it highlights the ways that psychological science can be used to answer important questions, like what factors influence how effective vaccines are? How do different policies influence people's feelings of safety and inclusion in different environments? And how is the process of misinformation perpetuated? So to conclude, you may enjoy psychological research if you love science, which I'm betting you do since you participate in Science Olympiad. If you're interested in how people think, behave, develop, and achieve well-being. And if you like working with other scientists to ask questions about important problems. If you're interested in learning more, you can check out psychologicalscience.org to learn more about psychology research and recent emergent findings from research psychologists. I also recommend that you look out for psychology classes at your school. So both your current school, but also your future colleges and universities, where you can also find ways to get hands-on experience in psychology research. And you can also feel free to contact me with any questions about psychological science, being a graduate student, or any other questions you may have. I'm always happy to talk to other people who love Science Olympiad. Thank you.